Hi everybody, it's Laura at Green Tree, and I am here today talking about coffee substitutes. So first we're going to talk about the wonders of caffeine and then why some people might not be able to have them, and then we'll talk about possible things you can have instead. So first things first, the classic cup of coffee. People love their coffee. People are, I would say, addicted to their coffee sometimes, where they have to have it. I mean, if you don't have your coffee, it's hard to wake up in the morning. So coffee is essential. The caffeine in coffee is a central nervous system stimulant. That means that it increases alertness, it reduces fatigue. At the right dosage, it can improve your ability to focus and just kind of make it easier to get things done and to stay awake when you need to stay awake. So, a lot of people love their coffee, and that's great. I guess the average adult can tolerate up to 400 milligrams of caffeine a day, which is the equivalent of about 4 cups. So there's nothing wrong with drinking your coffee and enjoying it. You just don't want to go to excess because some of the side effects of coffee and the caffeine therein, depending on the person, not everybody has this, but include heart arrhythmias and palpitations, which is what I get and why I can tell you all about these substitutes. Heartburn, which is something that the substitutes can also help combat. Some people will have digestive problems or bladder issues occasionally if you're drinking way too much of it, because it is a diuretic. Headaches. A lot of people will get headaches either from too much caffeine or from withdrawals from the caffeine. Depending on your level of sensitivity will affect how intense that reaction can be. Some people have the opposite effect, where a small amount of caffeine can actually help combat a headache, but it is something that's associated with the consumption of caffeine. And it can actually increase your blood pressure. Now that's a temporary thing for most people. Your blood pressure will go up while the caffeine is in your system and then come back down afterwards. But if you have an issue with high blood pressure, that is something to consider when choosing the type of coffee that you decide to drink. Now, a lot of people will default to decaf when they can't have regular coffee and caffeine anymore. If they become sensitive, if they have issues like I said I do with heart palpitations or anxiety. Some people with anxiety, caffeine can amp you up and just kind of keep raising the level. So it may be something to cut back on. But a lot of people will go to decaf. Now decaf is a great option. The average cup of regular coffee has about 97 to 100 milligrams of caffeine in it, which again, about 4 cups of coffee a day is tolerated by most average adults. Now decaf has a significantly lower percentage, but there is still caffeine in it. So the process that they use to remove the caffeine doesn't get all of it without making the coffee really not have any flavor left. Like, you'd have to do some pretty intense processes to remove all of it. But decaf has about 7 to 10 milligrams per cup. So it's quite a bit lower. You can see, I mean, it's 90% of the caffeine is removed. But there's enough there that some people are still sensitive to it. I'm going to give you an equivalency here. So in a cup of decaf, there's about as much caffeine as you would get from eating a half a bar of milk chocolate. So if a half a bar of milk chocolate is enough to make you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of amped up, and not just because of the sugar, then decaf might still have too much caffeine for you. Now, about a half a bar, like a standard bar of dark chocolate, has somewhere around 20 milligrams, so it would be the equivalent of drinking 2 cups of decaf. Now personally, I love chocolate, but I can't handle caffeine, and I can only eat about a square of dark chocolate at a time, which I love and do frequently, before I start to actually feel the effects of the caffeine and get kind of bouncy and start talking really fast. So you have to kind of figure out what works for you in terms of consumption. But that's a comparison that I think most people could find pretty clear. Like in a bar of dark chocolate, if you eat an entire bar, that's about the same as a half a cup of caffeinated coffee. So just keep that in mind if you're somebody who's sensitive to caffeine. Now, tea is less. A cup of tea is about equivalent to a bar of dark chocolate. Now, let's say that you need to do something else, either because coffee is giving you heartburn, because it's making you kind of stressed out or affecting your sleep. What are some of your other options? So I'm sampling a couple of things today if you guys want to taste these, but I'm going to describe them to you. So this is Caffex. When I hold it close, you can see it has little granules like regular instant style coffee would have. And this one's really handy because you can take it and mix it into hot or cold water, and it will dissolve and make you effectively a cup of herbal coffee right away. So this one is a blend of roasted roots, which is pretty typical for coffee substitutes. This one is specifically barley, rye, chicory, and sugar beets. So those are chopped and roasted. Well, and in this case, they're actually pulverized, made into a liquid and dried. That's how they make the instant beverages. And you get these nice little granules. And when you take that and mix it with water, let me make sure I'm grabbing the right one here for you. This is what you get. And you can see, like, that really looks like coffee. It's hard to kind of get the sheen on the top, but this is about the same color and consistency as black coffee, Caffex, when you brew it up like this. It's got a slightly lighter, smoother flavor. It doesn't have the acidic finish that you would get on a regular cup of coffee. So it actually might be easier for a lot of people to drink this black than it would be for people to drink black coffee. Because this is not going to be, even when it's concentrated like this and doesn't have any cream or sugar added, it's going to be a lot smoother and a lot easier on the palate. And this could be used, you know, in baking and stuff that calls for instant coffee. You could use this as a substitute for instant coffee in that type of dish as well. Now, another option that we have for you is Ticino. So Ticino actually comes in a few different flavors, which is nice. But this is ground like regular coffee, and you can run it through your percolator, or you use it in your French press or anything the same way you would normally brew coffee, which is kind of cool. We have hazelnut, mocha, and classic Java in the store. The one that I brewed up was the mocha, which you can see also looks very much like black coffee. Now, I would say that the Ticino is slightly lighter in color than the Caffex, but it has that bitterness of coffee at the end. I think the flavor of the Caffex is much, or of the Ticino is much closer to the flavor of real coffee. That's partially because they use more things to balance out the flavor. So, for example, in the classic Java, and this is almost the same as what's in the mocha, it's carob root, which I'll talk a little bit more about, barley, chicory, dates, almonds, natural flavors, and figs. So that gives it a little bit of sweetness to it. But they balance it out by using all of these different things. And the nice thing about this, it does have almonds in it, so it's not nut-free, but other than that, there aren't any really intense allergens in this, so most people can handle it. And the mocha one, I was worried it would have caffeine the first time that I saw it. But they use that carob and natural flavorings. And so this actually doesn't have any caffeine either. So like I talked about, chocolate does contain caffeine. You know, this bar of chocolate, if you ate the whole thing, is about the same as that half cup of coffee, like I mentioned. So a mocha is doubling down on the caffeine. If you order a mocha drink, you're getting the caffeine of the coffee and the caffeine of the chocolate. But you could have a mocha Ticino, and you're not going to have caffeine from the chocolate or from the coffee. This is the one that I'm sampling, like I said, if you guys want to try it today. The color is just the same as regular coffee. It's got a nice flavor, and it has that slight bite at the end that people who are used to drinking black coffee are used to. So this is a really good way to kind of step down from coffee as well. They even give you, which this is going to be backwards for you guys, but they have a little Kick Caffeine in 2 weeks plan on the side, where you can take and mix this with your coffee to reduce the level of caffeine in it and switch over to something that isn't naturally caffeinated. You could also just use a blend all the time. Personally, I use a blend of different teas and chicory instead of coffee. Now, I did mention carob. I've talked about carob on videos before. Carob comes from a tree, and I think I said carob root earlier, but it actually comes from a pod that grows on a carob tree. Very similar to cacao in that way, that it's this sort of outgrowth of the tree. It has kind of a bean inside that they use to make the finished product. But you can actually get carob treats that are very similar to chocolate. Now, I wouldn't say it's a substitute or a replacement for chocolate, but it satisfies a lot of those same taste cravings. And so this is a really good one that you can get instead of chocolate to kind of step yourself off of that caffeine entirely if you're really sensitive to it. So, if you're looking for the flavor, the satisfaction of that hot, tasty beverage, but you can't do the caffeine of coffee, we've got a few other options here that you can try instead to get the flavor, to have that enjoyment, but to not have to deal with whatever your caffeine side effects are. Like I said, headaches, digestive issues, heart palpitations, or increased levels of anxiety. So whatever it is for you, we've got something you can try. And even if you're used to drinking coffee in the morning and you want to quit earlier at night, this could be a good option because you can go ahead and have your coffee in the morning all the way up to even lunchtime or beyond, and then switch to something like Cafex or Ticino in the evening so that it's not going to disrupt your sleep schedule in the same way. So if you want to try one of these coffee substitutes, like I said, I'm going to be sampling these until about 6-ish. So if you want to come down and try them, feel free. And if you have questions about them any other time, just pop in the store and ask and I'll let you know, because I've drinking a lot of not coffee over the years. So hopefully that helps you guys out, and I will see you later. Have a great Tuesday, everyone. Bye.